At the start of the year, I set a goal for myself to hit 280 kilos on the deadlift by the end of this year. In fact, I put 20 kilos on every lift. That was the goal. So bench 160, squat 230, and deadlift 280. Those were the goals. It is now not very far into the damn year, and I'm already kind of repping 260 almost every other day. So I've got this quiet confidence about this deadlift thing, man. I don't know what it is about the deadlift. I am not built for the deadlift. My arms are short. You guys can see that I freaking have to pull it all the way to my junk. Whereas some people that are really good at deadlifting, they almost pull it just above the knee. So I'm at a disadvantage in the deadlift. However, for some reason, the squatting style that I do, ATG, narrow stance, seems to be like the greatest accessory for my deadlift. And so it's pushing my deadlift far, basically. This is now the third time this week I've hit 260 for one. And it's feeling good, it's feeling strong. I'm fatigued from all the glute work that I've been doing. I've upped the volume on the squats. I'm doing those wide stance squats now every single day after the main movements. So I'm kind of fatigued, yet the deadlift feels good. I feel strong. I feel strong in my core. I feel strong everywhere. That initial struggle that I used to have with that breaking the floor, the initial kind of pull, I've seemed to have kind of addressed that. And I've got a bit of a ritual now with that kneeling deadlift and then shrugging kind of into the bar, like just before I pull, I kind of raise my shoulders up and then I really clench down in the lats. And that somehow has done something to putting the right muscles on the map for me. The right cues are in my mind. And basically I've developed a little kind of routine for myself that's been working. So I've basically worked out a recipe, if you will, for my deadlift. It's going really, really well. And so now as I'm sitting here, we're not very far into the year, and I reckon 280 is not far away at all. I'm going to be conservative, and I'm going to say I'll hit 280 by the end of the mid-year, which means, I started off with 260 this year. Could I put 40 kilos on the deadlift in 1 year? I highly doubt it. But I have a good feeling of 280 by the middle of the year. Obviously, strength training is not a linear relationship. There's so many things kind of happening. We kind of sprint up to a checkpoint and then we kind of hit our head and then we have to kind of work out what's lagging next. Who's to say that, by the time I hit 280, I'll kind of work out maybe the top part of the motion I struggle with. Historically speaking, for me, the hardest point is off the ground. When I get it kind of around the knee, I'm kind of home, basically. So much so that I actually feel really strong when I'm kind of doing the eccentric. So from the top position all the way down to the knee, I feel very, very strong. I don't know what it is. It has to be something to do with the squatting and how I squat, and that's kind of built some strength to some muscles that's kind of carried over to that part of the deadlift. But I am very, very confident right now about the deadlift. I remember now that I'm sitting here talking to you guys, I remember guys, I don't know if you guys remember Mesthetics. I think that was the name of the channel back in the day, two fellas. I forget their names now. I haven't watched any of they kind of broke up and went their separate ways. But I remember back then they were incredibly good deadlifters, and they were saying how narrow stance squats was a great accessory for the deadlift. Front squats, high bar, back squats, that kind of stuff. And when I think about what I've been doing for the last freaking 2 years, it's exactly that. I've been doing the greatest accessory for a deadlift as my primary. However, having that said, for some reason, I struggle off the floor. So anyway, a lot to consider. And like I said in yesterday's video, you could probably go crazy trying to work out exactly what's what. That's why I kind of think to myself, okay, think of movement patterns. So clearly something is working my deadlift. And it's not the deadlift itself, I don't think. All I ever do with the deadlift is actually practice the damn thing. All I ever do is singles. I don't do any volume. I've said in the past why I don't do volume. It's too expensive. It's too much cost on the recovery points that I have. And so I want to put most of my points into the squat. And for whatever reason, the squat is kind of making the deadlift better. So all I ever do is just practice the deadlift every other day. I have done it every single day. I've kind of opted out to every other day so I can make time for other things other training, kind of like the bench press and whatnot. And that's all I do. And it's been working really well. And so right as I'm sitting here, I'm like 280 is probably very, very doable. 290, maybe 300. If I put on 40 kilos on the deadlift, that would be insane. I highly doubt that. My brain is telling me it's impossible, but the way the bar is moving at 260 3 times a week, I want to say that if I really pushed hard, I could probably get 270 now. So it's really encouraging. It's all kind of, going in the right direction. And because of all of that is going really well, I've also kind of been benching, and you guys have kind of been making comments in the last few weeks how my physique has kind of changed. I look beefier, I look bigger. My weight is now 98 kilos, 99 kilos some mornings. So I started off this journey at 92, 93, I want to say, something along those lines back 2 years ago, day one of the squat every day. And for a very long time, I didn't do any volume, man. You guys know exactly what I did. I would just basically sprint up to a, training max, something comfortable. And then a lot of the time, I would just end the session there or do something else. In recent times, in the last, I want to say, 2 to 3 months, I've kind of opted out to not go to, those training maxes. I've opted out to just working with fives as kind of the lowest amount of repetitions that I do in the squat. And it's kind of been really good for my hip, really good for my body. I feel really great, and it's a lot more volume. I've done 7 sets of 5 at 180 on the squat. Along with that, I've also done lots of benching. You guys have been commenting on my triceps. It's really weird about the triceps because, when I'm benching, I don't really feel all that much triceps, to be honest. I feel a lot of anterior delt, the shoulder. 5 sets of 5. Sometimes I do 7 or 8 sets of 5 at 120. In this session, I decided to up the weight a little bit, and I've gone down to sets of 3. So I did 3 sets of 3 at 130 kilos. I'll spend some time with threes. But to be honest with you, I reckon the biggest factor in my physique changing is the deadlift. It has to be. If you look at the tricep insertion points, the tricep actually helps you, like it's engaged when you are locking in at the start of the deadlift. Also, I don't know if you guys remember, it's gone back a little bit now. I haven't been to this gym in a little while, but that machine, kind of the golden era pull-over machine, where you kind of raise your hands and you grab this machine and you kind of pull over your head and kind of into your chest. So that's kind of, it's a lat workout, right? That is a lat machine, pull over. That's kind of the primary muscle that gets used. However, every single time I did that machine, I would get sore triceps, literally DOMs in my triceps. That, I want to say long head of the tricep. Anyway, it's one of the muscles that kind of wraps around to the rear delt, basically. So in a similar way as the pullover machine, I feel my triceps are really engaged when I'm locking into that deadlift at the start. I really focus on that shoulder depression to make sure the bar doesn't drift forward, doesn't wander forward, because if that happens, then the lever from my hip to the bar just elongates and the forces multiply, basically, for every millimeter that you lose the bar forward. So the idea is to keep it close to your shins. And I think the tricep gets activated through the lat as well to kind of keep that bar close. That's kind of how I've thought about it. I don't do any tricep extensions. I don't do any bodybuilding, shoulder, lateral raises, anterior raises. I don't do any of that. The only things I do for my upper body, if you want to say upper body workouts, is I do the bench press and I do the bicep curls purely just to keep my elbows healthy. That's all I do. So recently I've been doing hammer curls. I have done the straight bar. I've kind of been mixing that up just to keep the elbows healthy, because sometimes when I do a lot of bench pressing, my elbows kind of get sore and I get that, what do you want to call it, brachioradialis, that pain at the top. So ever since I've kind of started doing bicep curls, my elbows are healthy. That's the only reason I do the bicep curls. You guys know where I stand with bicep curls. I don't really find all that excitement doing them. So those are two and the only exercises that I do. Everything else is the squat and the deadlift and its variations. When I say its variations, all I really mean is now I've included the wide stance squats. Other than that, I've also recently introduced the hip thrusts, and that is literally it. I am a minimalist in terms of exercise selection. And also the front squats, obviously. I don't do a lot of exercises. I got touched intellectually by reading Matt Perryman, Pavel Tsatsouline, Dan John back in the day as well. Those are the texts that kind of like really triggered my mind into thinking specificity is the key. And so I know I always talk about Louis Simmons, and I talk about West Side Barbell and conjugate method, and that's kind of the exact opposite to what I believe in. But I still look over the fence to the different disciplines, different methods, and I try to make sense of what's happening. But I think specificity is the key. I'm strong in the deadlift, I'm strong in the squat, but that doesn't mean I'm strong in the yoke carry or the farmer's carry. Strongman competitors, they're kind of like the all-rounders. They do everything really well. For me, I want to make sure that I spend my recovery points exactly where I want it. I want a strong deadlift and a strong squat. And so, it gets complicating. Of course, if you get strong in the lunge, walking lunge, in the yoke, all that kind of makes sense. But just because you get strong in these doesn't mean there's going to be carryover. And that word carryover, it's something that I think about all the time. I don't want to waste recovery points, especially being a natural guy, doing shift work. I'm preparing to go to a night shift tonight, right? So I don't have time freaking to waste my recovery points on things that are not going to have good carryover to what I need. I'm very much focused on those two lifts. I couldn't care less about the yoke, couldn't care less about the farmer's carry. I couldn't care less about many other different things, even overhead press. I know a lot of you guys care about some of these lifts, and that's fine. I'm just saying that we don't have, especially us regular people living regular lives, we don't have enough time in the day, or the energy in the day, or the recovery points in the day to have like 50 different goals. It's you're not going to achieve anything if you do that. Yes, some of those goals, like I've said, some of those goals are related. We've spoken about overhead press and how that carries over to the bench press. That kind of makes sense. But you can't tell me that doing the actual bench press is going to be worse than doing the overhead press for the bench press. Specificity is king. So a lot of guys kind of start comparing oranges and apples and pears and whatever the saying is when they start talking about, I went over to the overhead press and I was working with sets of 10 and they really improved my bench press. But at the bench press, the guy was working with sets of 3. So why don't you go to the bench press and work with sets of 10 with the bench press? So when you do these types of things, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. You've changed the exercise, but you've also changed the reps and the sets and the volume associated with it. So you can't say the exercise is the one you can't attribute the exercise itself to the effect of the bench press because you've also changed the workload and the volume. So this is where I think specificity is king. And a lot of you guys will agree. But I know Conjugate, Westside, Louis, they say that you can get stale, you can get repetitive injuries and whatnot. I don't feel that is the case if you auto-regulate. If you fix yourself into these nice little neat boxes and you're like, I have to get 8 sets of 4, whatever percent, and no matter what, I have to get it, and your body's telling you we're not feeling ready, and you go and get it, of course there's going to be pain and there's going to be deviation from proper technique, form, and then you're going to have basically pains arise. I am telling you this from experience because when I was doing the singles, some of those mornings, some of those sessions, I would come in, I'm like, I don't feel like 180 for one, but God damn it, I'm going to get 180 for one. I start thinking about John Bros and what your body tells you is a lie. Well, whether you think that's a lie or not, pain comes. And so when pain comes, the body's telling you, you're full of shit. I'm telling you, you shouldn't be doing this, and here's some pain for you. Take it. Take the pain. And so over time, I've realized, even though in John Bros, that saying your body lies to you applies to many different things, there is a ceiling to that thought. There is a ceiling to that idea. The body's not the enemy, man. The body likes to give you false signals. So you kind of need to differentiate between crap and good. I've spoken about the 9 to 5 fog. You'll be sitting on your ass 9 to 5. You come home, you're tired. You're not freaking tired, man. You physically done nothing. You're just mentally foggy. As soon as you go into the gym and you do a warm up, all of a sudden you wake up, the fog disappears, and you can actually exert yourself physically. That type of stuff, sure, the body lies to you. But over time, if you're an avid lifter and you've been around the game for a little while, you can't tell, okay, shit's not feeling right in the hip, man. Should I be loading that another 20 kilos? So this is where experience comes in. But yeah, for the most part, when you wake up in the morning, you feel lazy, no one gives a shit. Your body's lying to you. Get up. You've just freaking slept. Get up. So it's about, getting over that mentality. But definitely, I think specificity is the key. Variation will get you around. And on top of all of this, superimposing all of these thoughts is your personality and your lifestyle. Who are you, man? Who are you? What do you like to do? Do you get bored? For me, man, like I've said this in the past, if I could just squat and get away with just squatting and everything else gets better, I would just squat. I don't give a shit. Like, for me, I don't need variation. I don't need 50 different things in my life. So I just need one thing, man. And if it's effective, I'm down. This is kind of the motivation behind all of this, is I'm continuously looking for that perfect recipe. So every single day I come in and do the exact same workout. I would love that. And sure, some of that doesn't make sense and there needs to be some degree of variation. There needs to be some degree of you chasing those weaknesses with things like the hip thrust machine. That kind of does really well for the deadlift. And there's a lot to kind of unpack there. But in the grand scheme of things, I've probably listed 8 or 10 exercises there, probably even less than that. But in the grand scheme of things, people do 30 exercises. If you look at the conjugate method, man, every single week you're doing something else. So you get into the hundreds. That to me rubs off. I don't know. I just don't think we should be doing that. My core belief is that strength is a skill. And I know that kind of means lots of different things. And a lot of you guys don't agree with that. But I think specificity is king. And therefore strength is a skill. If specificity is the most important attribute of strength, then what is specificity? Getting better at the skill. And, a lot of you guys think of that. It's like, oh, it's not really difficult to squat. I'm not talking about the actual form and technique. I'm talking about the firing of the neurons, the motor neurons firing, man. That's what I'm talking about. It's not just about what it looks like to the eye. It's about the firing. It's making that engine, that 6-cylinder engine, instead of it firing on 3 cylinders, I want it to fire at 6 cylinders, on 6 cylinders. It's this idea that a tune-up is better. Same thing. I've just taken my car to the mechanic and I'm like, dude, I want you to tune the hell out of this, man. I want you to advance the timing and I want to, just do your thing. The same, everything is the same, yet we're performing better. That's the power of the central nervous system. That's the power of the nervous system. The motor neurons, coordination of firing. That's what I think Pavel Tsatsouline meant when he said strength is a skill. Guys, I appreciate you. Everybody on the list, everybody on this channel, really appreciate you guys. I got to get out of here, eat some food, get some sleep, and go to a night shift. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.